Drew here, and my big question going into this series finale, season finale, unclear, was whether or not they were going to try to wrap up this entire show, and if they were going to be able to do that successfully, or if they were going to try to make a second season. And the answer is yes. They kind of towed the line, and I feel like they did a pretty good job of accomplishing both purposes. This ending, which, we've all been predicting that Adam was probably not long for this world, was pretty predictable. But at the same time, I think it was really the only satisfying ending this story could have. We've seen Michael giving up everything for his son, and I think that the big surprise was the way that it happened, because having Eugene kill him, this kind of came out of nowhere. And obviously he didn't intend to kill him, but the fact that this very episode, Michael refused to let Eugene testify on the stand, which ultimately resulted in Eugene being the one to go and try and kill Carlo for killing his brother Kofi, that is the decision that Michael has made to not do the right thing coming home to roost. Because if he had allowed Eugene to testify, Eugene wouldn't have gone to the Baxter family home and tried to kill Carlo and killed Adam instead. So I felt like this was a decision that we probably weren't expecting. I think probably all of us assumed that the Baxters were going to kill Adam, that Jimmy was going to kill him. But you saw this episode that Jimmy had seemingly decided to allow Adam to live because of his relationship with Fia in that moment where Michael is watching from outside and Jimmy is looking at him meaningfully, and then the music is playing in the slow-mo and he brings Adam in for the hug instead of killing him. So to me, that was intended to show that Jimmy had decided to let Adam off the hook because he wanted to keep his daughter happy. So Adam would have potentially survived if not for the fact that Michael made this decision to protect Carlo by doing what he did and not allowing justice to be carried out. So to me, I think this was probably the most poetic, the most poetic justice that we could have seen in this show, the best and most effective way to have Adam die if he was going to die. And I'm pretty sure he's dead. I think some of you may think he has a chance of coming out of this alive, but typically when people get shot in the neck, they're a goner. And he surely didn't show any signs of life when the episode faded to black. But there is potential for another season with these characters for sure. I would definitely tune in for at least a couple episodes to see if they could maintain the dramatic potential. I understand the criticisms of this show, I really do, but to me, I think that it would be easy to get caught up in all the details that the show gets wrong. But from my perspective, I've always felt like never let details get in the way of telling a good story, as long as you're actually telling a good story. And to me, this show managed to maintain the drama for 10 episodes, and there was very little lag in terms of times when I was disinterested in what was going on screen. A large part of that was the acting. I think the cast was fantastic, whether it be from stalwarts like Bryan Cranston and Michael Stuhlbarg, or relatively newcomer performers like Lamar Johnson as Kofi Jones. The performances were just really, really excellent across the board. And some of it was the writing. I think that it's no small trick to keep a viewer's interest for this many episodes. And a large part of it was the music. When things weren't happening, the show was still really enjoyable because the music amplified the drama. And I liked the setting and the cinematography as well. So I would definitely consider coming back for a second season, but there's really no need for one the way that this ended. I think that they've kind of answered all the dramatic questions they set out to, and they did it in the space of one episode. I wasn't sure if they would be able to, but I really think that they did pull it off. Bryan Cranston directed this episode. I feel that might have been a mistake. I don't think the directing was terrible, but I don't think it was the best directed episode of the series. I think that acting and directing is a tough thing to do. You see some directors and actors that can pull it off, but a lot of the time what you'll see is someone will realize that it's a little bit crazy to try to pull off both sets of tasks, and you'll see someone kind of stepping away from acting in the films where they're also directing, trying not to pull double duty. And I feel like, particularly in the scenes with Bryan Cranston this episode, some of the cutting was just a little off, and some of his acting, honestly, wasn't as good as it had been in previous episodes. I feel like having someone else to kind of draw a great performance out of an actor is important, and when you're trying to direct and act, I think that you lose a little bit of something. But there was some great scenes this episode. I'm quite frankly stunned that Carlo got off scot-free. I mean, I think that there's a little bit of a reflection of the justice system and how it doesn't care about certain individuals as much as others. It doesn't privilege the life of people like Kofi Jones as much as it privileges the life of someone like Carlo. And that Michael stopped Eugene from coming to the stand to humanize Kofi, to show the cost of the loss of his life. I think that that was part of what happened. I also think that there's just an element of which, in subtle ways, Michael impacted this trial and made people care more about Rocco, who, died and who is ultimately dead because of Adam, than they did about Kofi Jones, who ultimately, I'm sure he wasn't a perfect human being, because none of us are, but he had nothing to do with the death of the Baxter boy. So, again, this was an interesting way for the trial to go down, but I had a little bit of trouble swallowing it. I also thought that the way that they resolved the plot lines with Charlie and Detective Costello, it was pretty well done. I mean, I think it made sense. I think that if I was a person in Detective Costello's position and I cared about justice and I knew that I could get more justice and kind of counter the corruption that was in the police force by turning a blind eye to Michael in that situation, especially given the fact that it would mean death for Adam if I were to speak up, I might very well do what she did. And Charlie, he's, a very persuasive individual. We saw this earlier this season as he fought for getting what he wanted in his community and using quid pro quo there to get what he wanted, and he did it here to protect his friend. What happened with Robin, which is a loose thread that never really got tied off, which is one of the things I guess they could explore in a second season, is who was she having the affair with, and why was this even relevant to this season? Because as it was, they didn't really resolve that particular thread. Lastly, I thought the most impressively acted scene, and probably my favorite scene in the episode from a dramatic standpoint, was the face-off between Lee and Michael. And I really admired Carmen Ejogo's performance throughout the season, but particularly here. I think that she brought a welcome balance to this story, and that she is this person who is intelligent and ferocious, but she's pursuing justice. She's pursuing what's right, and she does love Michael, and you can see that she wants to believe that he's a good man, but he ultimately proves her wrong this episode when he refuses to let Eugene testify. But in this scene between them, where she finally confronts him and realizes what he's done and why he's been doing it, I thought this was Bryan Cranston's strongest scene of the season, perhaps, and I also thought it was her strongest scene of the season, and just this confrontation between the two, where they really just set up the stakes for Michael. He could go out and do the right thing, he could make this decision, and he could help to get Carlo convicted because he deserves to be convicted for what he's done, or he can continue to protect Adam, and he can refuse to do the right thing, essentially, and allow Carlo to get off. And this moment where, she says, you don't get to have me, but you do have the chance to do the right thing, to wipe this decay off of your soul. It was a powerful moment, powerfully acted by both individuals, and it really set up the stakes. And I think it was what made that final moment where Adam dies, ultimately because of the decision that Michael made here, all the more potent. I think that, it was interesting, the moment in the courtroom where Michael is trying to decide what he's going to do, and he's looking at Adam with love in his eyes, and then he sees that the Baxter family knows about Adam, and he sees that threat, and Jimmy Baxter's eyes and knows that if he allows Carlo to get convicted, that it will mean Adam's death, potentially, and he makes his choice, and Adam ends up dead anyways. I thought that was a dramatically compelling scene, helped by the acting and the score, and I liked the choice to make it in slow motion and to just kind of let it be a drawn-out moment. I thought that it really worked. I also liked the moment where the Baxters realized that it was Adam, when Hope Davis and Michael Stuhlbarg looked on with dawning realization as they realized as Adam was using his inhaler and making the same sounds he had made when he was there at the scene of the hit and run watching Rocco Baxter die. I thought that that was a very well-realized moment. So on the whole, I really enjoyed this finale. I'm not sure it was the best episode of the season, but I left feeling satisfied from a dramatic perspective. I've mentioned, this is not a perfect show, but for me, I think the pleasures outweighed the things that I didn't enjoy, and I thought that the characterization and the acting were quite strong. And as I said, I'd come back for a second season, give it a couple episodes to see if they could do anything with it. I don't know that they're going to make a second season. I kind of think they won't, because I think it's probably going to be hard for them to get all these very, very talented actors back, but I would be down for it. So let me know what you thought in the comments. If you're interested in seeing my upcoming reviews of other shows on this channel, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching.